Hey, my name is Kenny Johnston. I am here for an ops product walkthrough. I'm going to be covering serverless today. Let me go ahead and start sharing my screen and we can get started. I will, actually, let me just share my whole desktop. This one. Okay, I'm going to put window over here. All right, so we are going to start with, move my bookmarks. Wrong window. Huh, interesting. That did not apply to the, oh, maybe I have to be on something here. Let's try that. There we go. Okay, let's start here. So actually I'll search the docs for serverless. I'm gonna cheat a little bit and already have a Kubernetes cluster. I have a project that has a group level Kubernetes cluster that I'm gonna use for this walkthrough. But then we'll walk through the usage of the serverless features within that cluster. So let's start by going to gitlab.com. I was there and that was my to-do list. And I'm gonna go to a group of mine that is called Kenzie Johnston Apps. That's the one. Okay, take a look at this group. So it's a group with a number of applications. You can see it already has one called functions, which I've been messing around with serverless and used to create a little web application. But first, let's jump to Kubernetes clusters. So this shows that I have one Kubernetes cluster called Kenzie Johnston App. It is a group level cluster. Let's check that one out. First, we can see, waiting for performance data, we can see that Helm's installed. We can see that Ingress is installed, Cert Manager, Prometheus is installed. I don't have a runner or Crossplane installed. I do have Jupyter Hub, and I do have Knative. So when I installed Knative, it gave me this Knative endpoint, and I could put a domain name in here. And so I put serverless.kenziejohnston.com. That's going to be helpful because it'll give me some routing for functions as I create them. But let me just show you how that works. Let me go to compute Google. So I'll just show you my, that's not exactly what I want. I just want to go to the console. Here we go. I'll show you my personal project that houses that domain and how I set it up. It's fairly straightforward. So my personal project. And I'm going to go to network and DNS. Okay, so I have this DNS name for Kenzie Johnston, and I just added star.serverless and that IP that was provided to me here for the Knative endpoint as a wildcard A record. So now that I had those, that will help me when I am creating functions. Let's go back to serverless. It talks about prerequisites. I got to have an existing project. I've got to have a Kubernetes cluster, Helm tiller installed. I need a runner. I'm going to use GitLab.com's runners. I need a domain name. I've got to have a GitLab CI YAML file, etc. Installing Knative via GitLab's Kubernetes integration. This is going to go through what I'm showing you I already did. I want to add a Kubernetes cluster already added. Actually, I can show you briefly. This was on my work account. It's a little bit bigger. Increase the font size. Okay, so in this project, let's go underneath those. I had some clusters and I created one called Kenzie Johnston App. You can see successfully running here. And through the Google Compute Engine interface, I can show you the workloads that are running. There's a number of them scoped to different projects. So you can see artisans as a project, functions as a project. These ones are the ones for Knative. So you can see it's got these services running, and as well as Istio was installed as part of our Knative installation for you. All right, so back to the docs. The docs said, wait for it to install, and then you're going to get a Knative endpoint. Did that. Probably want to add an A record with a wildcard pointing to that IP address. I showed you I did that. Okay, using an existing installation of Knative, didn't do that. Like I said, installed it myself. Let's talk about, okay, so we got configuring logging. I think that configuring logging requires me to have my own storage backend. So I'm going to skip that part. Let's talk about supported runtimes. Actually, let me just confirm that on logging. Prerequisites: GitLab managed cluster. Got to be able to run kubectl commands. So yeah, this looks like it would install. So I could do this. I'm going to skip the logging part. First, let's get the application up and running, and then we could do that as part of a later part of the walkthrough. Supported runtimes gives an overview of what types of runtimes, including recently re-added support for OpenFAS. Okay, deploying functions. So you can find and import all the files referenced in this doc in the functions example project. So I can clone that project. Maybe that would be a good place to start. Talks about how I need to configure my serverless YAML file, my GitLab CI YAML file, what each one of those parameters does, and how I can interact with it. Let's start there. Let's start with that template project. I know that's where I started in one of the ones I already have. So I have this project. Let's fork it to here. I'm going to edit this because I already have one called function. Oh, wait, that's weird. This was already a fork. It's going to be a little bit of a trouble. This has a bunch of other functions that I've already created. How can I go about that? I don't really want to reset it to that other project where it was because I'm using it for another example. How about this? I will clone this locally, and then, no, that's not going to work. I'll just create a new project, empty, and copy these files, just a handful of files. Okay, so I'm going to go to my group. Let's just tell me that I already forked this project. Oops. Click the wrong one. Okay. Let's delete this one. Okay, back to it. I'm gonna go to my groups. Create a new blank project. The project name is going to be called Walkthrough Functions. I'm not going to do it. This is a better option. See if this works. Okay, cool. I now have this called walkthrough functions. Let's go back to okay, this is all about stuff that was in that example. All these, seems like it's suggesting all these files are already in that example. These are explanations of the different fields that I can use to define the service and the description of the service. Let me compare these two. This one right here. So this is the serverless YAML file. And this is a description of what those fields mean in that file. Okay, so service, it's got the service name, called functions, description of the service. Provider, what's used to execute it. Trigger mesh is the middleware we're using. These are some environment variables we could be passing. It's just an example of the variable name and contents in foobar and secrets, and then a description of each one of the functions. So there's first one called function.js. It has a handler that is the function's name. It has a source for where we find the executables, a runtime, which we're using Node.js, description, specific environment variables. Looks like this needs to be env, and then some secrets, maybe that is deprecated. Okay, so it's all about how I could customize my application. This is how I could interact with it. So I think I go back to here, looking at this project. I run a CI pipeline because I'm using a group level cluster. I should get an actual deployment, and it already has Knative installed. Let's see if that's the case. Okay. Pipeline running, first job. Huh. That was a weird error. So now it is getting picked up. This, the runners picked it up. It's, pulling latest, the specified image. Okay, that job was successful. Look at this pipeline. Now we're deploying it. This is just us tailing the logs off of that runner. Creating a function. Oh, here's a warning about the use of that wrong variable. So job successful. Service functions is, didn't give me a URL there. All right, let's try looking at operations and serverless. Okay, so it says I have this Let's head walk through functions. Here's the URL. What happens if I just hit this? Okay, yeah, that's right. I think I need to use Postman. Or let's just go back to what this says. This says, okay, it's up. One thing I could do is a curl command. Let's try that. Except for my URL, it's not this one. And the response I should get is just an echo and like an exact same JSON as what I sent it. That did not work. Give me a response. It's not a useful one. Or not an echo. Let's say it that way. Let's check out this code. Okay. So this is getting an object, turning it into JSON. Then I should just return. What does the name part mean? Oh, I actually wanted to return. Let's see if I edit this. This secret edition. Let's adjust that and see if it works. Name was created here based on the input, and we were just supposed to reflect it back, but we weren't actually returning it. Returning the word name. Maybe that's an issue with the example not being exactly up to speed. Okay, so cool thing is that when I did make that commit, it started a new pipeline job, a new pipeline with a number of jobs. It's building right now. We can wait for it to deploy and then try it again. Okay, finish building. It's not deploying. So it did give me an actual response, which is good. That means the function is up and it ran. Just didn't give me the right one. Let's see, now that it's up again. Ah, okay. So that did work. That was my problem, is that it looks like that example is just a little bit incorrect. Sorry, I'm off on another screen mentioning that. Okay, so let's do this. I'm gonna call it a couple times. And you can look at this exact function query. Cannot read property queries of null. I mean, we've had no invocations probably. That is an interesting error, or should probably just show me that in the invocations instead of giving me the error. But I have invoked it a couple of times now. Oop, oh, yikes. I did not mean to run that. Yeah, that is an interesting error. It's showing me that there are no, cannot read property queries of null. It's not giving me the query information needed to show these invocations. Let's go back to the docs. So I said run that, or you can use Postman or some other tool. Here's a way where you can access secrets from within your function. It can be useful if you have database connection or other information that you want to store, like not in the application itself, but you need to be able to get access those secrets from within the function itself. We do that by passing them into the appropriate Kubernetes namespace. So this says to access your Kubernetes secrets from within your function, the secrets should be created under the namespace of your serverless deployment. So make sure you create those. You could do this in your CI YAML file. Let's see if we can do that. This was working. So we could add in the deploy stage a before script to apply this secret variable. Let's try that. Let's go this whole thing for deploy. Let's call this walkthrough secret. This is about how I got the URL, but I think I get the URL now by finding the function detail page. This shows what the function detail page should look like, including with invocations, which I was not getting. It's for enabling TLS, which I can try later. Let's just make sure I got this secrets part right. Okay, so I'm gonna commit this, have it run. I haven't actually defined that CI variable. So in CI/CD, I can look at my variables. I'm gonna add this key. Mine is gonna be hello walkthrough. It's gonna be available in all environments. Let's save those. I might need to run this pipeline again. Interesting thing is, I think that I'm using that secret variable here in this secret return my secret. And let's just look at this. So the secret was called walkthrough. I'm gonna make sure this connection is right. Let's go to the repository. CI YAML file that creates a secret called my secret in my appropriate namespace for this project. And then my secret, I created this variable that is actually stored within GitLab, so not within the code itself, and added it to that secret variable. And then this is where I'm actually calling that secret variable. Or sorry, referencing it, and it should return the secret name. Okay, I think that's right. let's see how we're doing. I'm gonna run it one more time with that variable known. But it did run successfully, and let's see if it still responds correctly. It does, that's good. Okay. I was gonna go look at the invocations again. Yeah, still getting an error. Ah, do they need some special? Prometheus must be installed. I have Prometheus installed. Huh. It says if it does not disappear, this error message is also not, or this explanation of what type of error I might get is not super great and didn't really match with what I saw. Maybe that's right because I'm seeing a different error. But mine specifically says cannot read property queries of null. This just said may appear indicating that metrics data is loading or is not available at this time. Mine says that. It says it should clear up, but it's not clearing up. Yeah, interesting. Huh, I'm not sure what that error is from. Okay, pipeline was successful. Did not return the secret that I was looking for here. If it's not undefined, return this, otherwise give me a blank. Let's try this. Let's say otherwise tell me. Wonder if I'm. So in this documentation, told me to pass that secret. Secrets. Where's it over here? Wondering about this reference. Where am I using that? Let's wait for that pipeline to run again. Okay, so it did not find a secret with that name. Let's see if this is actually being successful, this kubectl command. So when deploying, let's look at the logs here. kubectl create generic MySecret. Oh, try run, yes. Secret MySecret configured. That seems to be successful. Hmm. I wonder if it's not referenced correctly. Not sure how to proceed with the secrets part. I'll have to come back to that. I do have a successful function running. Don't have invocation data, which I'm expecting. I'm not able to get the secrets part of this where I can pass a secret and use it in the function, which is going to be pretty useful for any legitimate use case for functions where I'm connecting to some other service. I wouldn't want to store any credentials for doing so in anything other than a secret that's retrieved by my application. It's really not stored in hard code. So I need to figure out how to get that. Running functions locally. Kind of skip that, deploying them. Okay, let's look at this deploy, get the URL. I was suggesting that I can do that here, but this says my URL is blank. I'm wondering why that is. Might be another error. Take a snapshot of that. Talked about function details. Prometheus support should be available. It's about certification using an older version. I want to show you an instance where this is working, and then I might actually continue the walkthrough and try starting from scratch. So creating my own individual project, not at the group level, and installing, attaching a Kubernetes cluster and installing Knative, and then using this example. I'm wondering if some of the funkiness is because I have two separate projects that are using some of the same function names in one group cluster. Okay, but let me go to, let's just go back to my Johnson apps. Okay, so I wanted to show you these other, I'm going to close a bunch of these other ones and we can come back to them. Okay, so this is the base project called Functions that I created. It has 3 separate functions. Actually, yeah, I'll just show you in here. Echo, flip, and haiku. Okay, so echo is the same one. Man, it's actually much simpler than the previous one. All it does is return what was provided. Twice, sorry. Yeah. So if you give it a request, whatever is the value of the JSON key for string, it returns twice. So if you sent it a JSON payload with the string equals dog, then it will return dog, dog, to dog plus dog with a space in between. Flip flips the value, the key in the value. So, oh no, sorry. If you give it a 2-word string, it'll flip the order of those words. If you give it a multi-word string, it'll flip the whole order of the words. And then Haiku actually calls those other two functions. So this is a function that parses JSON that came in, goes and fetches two other functions and passes some information. So in this case, I use the echo one that doubles something, and then I use the flip function that flips something, and then we combine them all back together. I'll show you how this looks in this form. I created a GitLab Pages page that just displays a form that has 4 input fields: season, animal, action, and fruit, and then produces a haiku. I'll show you what that looks like outside here. Okay, so this is the content. So I've got this page, GitLab Pages, that takes a season, an animal, an action, and a fruit. So if I give it winter, a bat, an action, let's say it, let's say bats swim, and a fruit. This is the one that gets flipped, so I'll say juicy apple. Hit create. Now remember, this is instantiating some functions that probably haven't been run in a while, so there might be some boot up time. Making one call to a function called haiku, which then subsequently calls 2 separate functions to generate the content. Okay, so it made a haiku by saying winter, so season I supplied moonlight, the bat swims, and it flipped the fruit. So that is an example of how you can kind of create functions that are that call each other. I was actually doing that to get a sense of how about setting up tracing, which I've not done between these projects, but for another project I was setting up tracing. But this is an example of where I've got a number of functions, all of which perform separate tasks, one of which relies on the other two as kind of like sub-services or backend services. Wanted to show you, if I look at in this functions project that has a, let's look at the definition in this serverless YAML file. It's got 3 functions defined: echo. Oh, it still says echo. It shouldn't. That handler, I think, is just how it ends up being displayed. And haiku. Actually, I'm just going to edit those now. So echo, flip, and haiku. I don't know why those were left as. I also want to show you. So that's going to start a CI pipeline. I also want to show you, let's make an adjustment to haiku. So this produces the final output, especially when it says pull them all together. This is what, say, the response you got for season, moonlight, blah, blah, blah. So if I say change moonlight to starlight, and then I'm updating. I'm gonna update that directly to master. That will deploy, and then we can see how that adjusts in the web page that I'm calling it from. Should I hit create, and it should make the call and then give me a response back. Let's do this. Okay, so that's an example of it running again. I'm waiting, want to see those pipelines finish running. Uh-oh. Why did that fail to build? Subsequent one successfully built. Seems like another error with just picking up that container for the runner. This one's deploying. That one failed too. Yikes. Let's see if this build is successful. Okay, so that build was successful. And that one was successful. Okay, interesting. We should try running this one again. Let's run. Weird. Cannot read property queries. No, this was working the other day when I was utilizing it. So I wonder if I screwed something up somewhere. So I'd updated from Moonlight to Starlight, and that did not. Let's check this out. Oh, wrong pipeline. This one was what I was looking for. Still running. Okay, now successful. Effect did not land. From Moonlight to Starlight, that did successfully deploy. I've created these examples here already. Still showing Moonlight. Yes, these were examples that I was just running. This last one is still showing Moonlight despite the fact that the repository, this code has it not see Moonlight, which means the latest version has not been deployed. Let's see if it tells me that from this page. Tells me the last deployment. It doesn't. That might be interesting to add. I'm going to take a note. To add the last deployment or commit on this functions detail page. That would tell me which one is, what is in production today. Still running through this pipeline. Oh, now it's different. Okay, so maybe that last deployment completed, something happened with that error, but now it says Starlights. Okay, so this was an example of multi-function project. Let's go back to my starting point, and the difficulty is I'm going to need, oh, I'm just going to add a project and attach its own Kubernetes cluster here. Let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to just do a little bit of cleanup. I'm going to delete this project, which we had some trouble with. Okay, that one is deleted. Go back up here. And I'm going to create a, you know what I could have done anyway. I just wonder, maybe I should just do this somewhere else. Let's try this. I'm just going to create this as a personal project. Here's all my projects. Let's create a new project. It's going to be under mine. It's going to be a functions test. Actually, now that I think about it, maybe go back to that example. Just clone this into my personal namespace. Okay, so this project, clean project, it's got the same content I was viewing before. But let's say I did that and I'm going to follow the instructions. I'm lost. I'm going to follow this up to add an existing Kubernetes cluster. So I know how to do that part. Let's just start there. Kubernetes. So I'm going to keep this as my docs. Everything else is over here. Okay, let's add a cluster. I'm going to add a GKE cluster. I have an account here. really, yeah, I think I do need 3 nodes for Knative to run. Let's follow the instructions. Add an existing cluster. Said that I need a cluster with the set of minimum recommended cluster specifications run Knative is 3 nodes, 6 vCPU. I think that's what this will get me. Okay, so we'll wait for this cluster to be created. And then we need to install Helm. Close the view of this project a little bit. I am gonna use a domain here. So I'm gonna add an A record and I'll just wait for them. Just wait for the IP address when I get to that point. Cluster is still being created. I don't need that anymore. Let's check in on that cluster creation. So it's the same project. Function tests still being created. I don't see any nodes that have come up, which seems a bit strange. I hate to be the impatient one, but I'm wondering if there's a build error in GKE here. Let's try it again. course. Should be able to adjust this later. Just want to see if I can get one cluster created. Yeah, I think both of these are going to fail. Okay, so another option would be to use my personal project. Both of those are in a stalled state. So I can either delete them in GKE, nor can I remove the integration in GitLab. GitLab's waiting for the cluster to be created. Okay. You know what I might do? Let's just delete this whole project. See how that works. Again. It's not going to be removed immediately, so that might not help my immediate problem. Huh. Okay, I'm not going to try to do that. Apparently having troubles creating new clusters from scratch. I think we did show utilizing Knative to deploy functions, had some errors when using an existing project, a new project on an existing group level cluster. I think that's what the issues were, but I will track them down. And then showcase some examples of an existing project that I'd already created on that group level cluster where you can interact with. We can define multiple functions and then showing an interaction with them. So hopefully that has been a useful walkthrough. A little bit disappointed in some of the issues that I ran into, but I will track them down and we will continue to iterate. Let me find my Zoom window where I'm sharing. Yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing. So yeah, thanks for watching. You can follow along in the issue linked in the description for follow-up in terms of issues and bugs that were identified, as well as maybe I'll make sure I follow up with how I solved any of the problems that I ran into in this walkthrough. Thanks, everybody.